Did you know that the food sitting in your kitchen right now could drop your blood sugar faster than most medications? I'm not talking about eliminating bread or living on lettuce for the rest of your life. I'm talking about specific foods that work within hours, not weeks, to bring those numbers down naturally. And I've watched it happen in my clinic over and over again. Patients walking in with fasting numbers in the 160s and 180s, and walking out 2 weeks later with numbers in the 90s, without adding a single new prescription. The pharmaceutical companies don't want you knowing this, because there's no profit in a 50-cent avocado. But I'm going to show you exactly which foods to eat, when to eat them, and why they work better than the pills you've been handed. Before we dive in, I need you to do something. Hit that subscribe button right now, smash the like, and drop a comment telling me what your last fasting blood sugar reading was this morning. I'm Dr. Joseph Miller, and I actually read every single comment because the numbers you share directly influence what I cover next. If I see most of you are struggling with morning spikes, that's the video I'll make. If it's after meal crashes, I'll tackle that. Your data shapes this channel, so speak up. Let's get into this. Here's what nobody explained to you during that rushed 10-minute doctor's visit. High blood sugar isn't just about eating too much sugar. That's the lazy explanation. The real problem starts deeper, with a hormone called insulin. Think of insulin as the key that unlocks your cells, so glucose, the sugar floating in your bloodstream, can actually get inside where it belongs. When you've spent years eating the standard American diet, riding that blood sugar roller coaster, your cells get exhausted. They stop responding to insulin's knock. We call this insulin resistance. Now your pancreas panics. It pumps out more and more insulin, trying to force those stubborn cells to open up. But the cells stay locked. Your blood sugar climbs higher. You feel tired, hungry an hour after eating, and your waistline expands no matter how little you eat. The standard medical response? A prescription that floods your system with even more insulin. But here's the truth they won't tell you. Your body doesn't need more insulin. It needs to remember how to use the insulin it already has. And that's where food comes in. Not restriction, not starvation, strategic addition. The 12 foods I'm about to show you do 3 critical jobs. They slow the flood of sugar entering your bloodstream. They cool down the inflammation that's jamming your insulin signal. And they wake your insulin receptors back up so your cells start answering the door again. You don't need all 12 tomorrow. Add them in over the next 2 weeks and watch what happens. Let's start with the fastest acting tool in your arsenal, apple cider vinegar. If you have a glucose meter at home, you can literally watch this one work tonight. The magic ingredient is acetic acid, and it does 2 things simultaneously. First, it slows your stomach from dumping carbohydrates into your intestines too fast. Second, it helps your muscle cells pull glucose out of your blood and burn it for fuel, instead of letting it circulate. Dr. Carol Johnston at Arizona State University ran studies showing that just 1 tablespoon of vinegar before a high-carb meal lowered the after-meal blood sugar spike by 20 to 34% in people with insulin resistance. That's a pharmaceutical-level effect from something that costs $3 a bottle. Here's exactly how to use it. Take 1 tablespoon, and this is critical, dilute it in a full 8-ounce glass of water. Drink it 10 to 15 minutes before your largest meal of the day, the one with the most carbohydrates. Never drink it straight because the acid will wreck your tooth enamel and burn your throat. And if you're already on blood sugar medication, talk to your doctor first because vinegar can amplify that drug's effect and drop your sugar faster than expected. But for most people, this is the single quickest win on this entire list. Second on the list is cinnamon, and most of you are buying the wrong kind. The cheap stuff in the baking aisle is cassia cinnamon, and it contains a compound called coumarin that's rough on your liver if you take it daily. What you want is Ceylon cinnamon, sometimes labeled as true cinnamon. It's gentler, safer for everyday use, and it's the one I recommend to every patient in my practice. Ceylon cinnamon works because it contains polyphenols, natural plant compounds that mimic insulin's behavior. They help your insulin receptors grip glucose more tightly and escort it out of your bloodstream. They also slow gastric emptying, which means your stomach releases food more gradually, preventing that post-meal blood sugar explosion. Research from the USDA's Human Nutrition Program found that as little as half a teaspoon per day significantly lowered fasting glucose in adults with type 2 diabetes. Half a teaspoon, that's it. Stir it into your morning coffee, sprinkle it over oatmeal, or blend it into a smoothie. The key is to pair it with a carbohydrate-containing meal, because that's precisely when you need your receptors working harder and your digestion slowing down. If you skip this one, you're leaving free points on the table. Number 3 is chia seeds. These tiny gray and black seeds look insignificant, but they pack an outsized punch. If you've ever made chia pudding, you've already seen how this works. When chia hits liquid, it swells into a thick gel, and that's exactly what happens inside your gut. Chia is one of the richest sources of soluble fiber you can buy. That gel wraps around the carbohydrates in your meal and slows their breakdown and absorption to a crawl. Instead of glucose flooding your bloodstream all at once, it trickles in slowly and steadily. No spike, no crash, no desperate hunger an hour later. On top of that, chia carries plant-based omega-3 fats that actively reduce inflammation. And inflammation is the silent assassin underneath insulin resistance. When your body is chronically inflamed, that inflammation physically interferes with the insulin signal at the cell surface. Cool the inflammation, and suddenly your cells start listening to insulin again. 1 to 2 tablespoons a day gets the job done. Stir it into yogurt, drop it in a glass of water with lemon, or toss it into a smoothie. Let it sit for 10 minutes so it forms that gel before you consume it, and make sure you're drinking plenty of water throughout the day, because all that fiber needs liquid to move through your system properly. Fourth up is eggs, and I mean whole eggs, yolk included. For decades, people were terrified of the yolk because of cholesterol myths, and that bad advice pushed millions toward sugary breakfast cereals that absolutely destroyed their blood sugar. Let me set the record straight. A whole egg is almost pure protein and fat, with virtually zero carbohydrates. That means it barely moves your blood sugar needle at all. But here's where it gets interesting. There's something researchers call the second meal effect. When you start your day with eggs instead of toast or cereal, you don't just stabilize your blood sugar at breakfast. You stabilize it all the way through lunch. You walk into your next meal with calmer insulin levels and a smaller glucose spike. The protein and fat keep you full, so those mid-morning cravings that usually send you hunting for donuts simply vanish. In my practice, swapping a cereal breakfast for 2 or 3 eggs is one of the fastest changes I see reflected on a morning glucose reading. 2 to 3 whole eggs in the morning is the sweet spot for most people. Scramble them with spinach, boil a batch on Sunday for the week, or fry them in a little butter. Stack that with the avocado we'll cover next, and you've just built a near-perfect blood sugar breakfast that'll hold you steady for hours. Number 5 is the avocado, and if you're avoiding it because of the calories, that fear is costing you. The fat in an avocado is monounsaturated fat, the same heart-healthy family as olive oil, and it's one of the most blood sugar-friendly fats on the planet. Here's why it works. That healthy fat, combined with the fiber inside an avocado, slows your entire meal down. When you add half an avocado to a plate of rice or a slice of toast, you're not removing the carbohydrate. You're putting a brake on how fast it converts into blood sugar. The glucose rises gently instead of spiking, and that gentle rise means your pancreas doesn't have to flood your system with insulin. Monounsaturated fat has also been clinically shown to improve insulin sensitivity, meaning your cells start responding to insulin's knock faster and more efficiently. In my experience, this is the easiest habit to build because avocado makes meals more satisfying. You stop reaching for snacks an hour later because you're actually full. Half an avocado per day is a sensible target. Mash it onto whole grain toast, slice it over scrambled eggs, toss it into a salad that already contains a starch. Anywhere you have carbohydrates, an avocado softens the glycemic blow. Number 6 is fatty fish, specifically salmon, mackerel, and sardines. This one doesn't work by slowing your digestion. It works on the deeper issue, the reason your cells went deaf to insulin in the first place: chronic inflammation. Insulin resistance is driven largely by low-grade persistent inflammation. When your body is quietly inflamed year after year, that inflammation physically interferes with the insulin receptor on the surface of your cells. Fatty fish are loaded with 2 omega-3 fats, EPA and DHA, and these are among the most powerful natural anti-inflammatory compounds we know of. They lower inflammatory markers, repair cell membranes, and allow the insulin receptor to function the way it's supposed to. Over 15 years of clinical practice, I can tell you without hesitation, patients who eat fatty fish twice a week have calmer, more stable numbers and better cardiovascular health across the board. Aim for 2 servings per week, each about the size of your palm. Wild-caught salmon, mackerel, sardines, and herring are all excellent choices. Bake it, grill it, or buy canned versions if that fits your budget better. Canned mackerel and sardines are some of the cheapest, most nutrient-dense options in this entire video. Don't overlook them. Number 7 is broccoli sprouts, and I need you to pay very close attention here because this one is the most underutilized weapon in this entire arsenal. I'm not talking about mature broccoli. I'm talking about the tiny 3-day-old sprouts. Miss that distinction and you lose almost all the benefit. Broccoli sprouts contain a compound called sulforaphane, and they have 50 to 100 times more of it than a full-grown head of broccoli. Sulforaphane does something none of the other foods on this list do quite as directly. It goes straight to your liver and quiets down the overnight glucose factory. Here's what most people don't realize. Your liver makes sugar while you sleep. That's normal. But in insulin resistance, it makes way too much, which is why so many of you wake up with a high fasting number even though you didn't eat anything all night. A 2017 study from Lund University in Sweden gave concentrated sulforaphane to people with type 2 diabetes and brought their fasting blood sugar down measurably, with the strongest effect in the people whose numbers were hardest to control. You can grow broccoli sprouts on your countertop in a mason jar for pennies, or you can buy them fresh in the produce section. A small handful, about a quarter cup, on a salad or sandwich most days of the week is plenty. Don't cook them hard because high heat destroys the active compound. Eat them raw or just barely wilted. Number 8 is lentils, and this one proves the entire thesis of this video. Lentils are a carbohydrate, and they will lower your blood sugar. Let that sink in. Lentils are built from slow-digesting carbohydrate called resistant starch, wrapped in soluble fiber, with a solid dose of plant protein. That combination means the glucose inside the lentil is released into your bloodstream slowly and steadily over hours, not all at once. They carry the second meal effect too, so a bowl of lentil soup at lunch keeps your sugar stable well into the evening. Clinically, swapping white rice or white potatoes for lentils a few times a week is one of the most reliable interventions I know to bring down an A1C, which is your 3-month average blood sugar. Aim for half a cup to a full cup of cooked lentils a few times per week. Use them in soups, stews, or cold salads with olive oil and that apple cider vinegar we talked about earlier. They're filling, cheap, and they stretch a meal further than almost anything else. 9th on the list is walnuts. Of all the nuts, this is the one I point patients toward first because of what it does for your blood vessels and your insulin simultaneously. Walnuts are rich in polyunsaturated fat and the same plant-based omega-3 found in chia seeds. That fat improves endothelial function, which is the health of the thin lining inside your blood vessels. High blood sugar damages that lining first, setting you up for heart disease and stroke. At the same time, the fat, fiber, and protein in walnuts blunt the post-meal blood sugar rise and lower fasting insulin levels, which tells you how hard your pancreas is working. A small handful as a snack instead of crackers or cookies literally turns a blood sugar spike into a flat line. A quarter cup, or about 7 to 10 whole walnuts, is the target. Keep them raw or dry roasted, not candied or honey glazed. Use them to replace a processed snack, not add on top of one. Number 10 is Fenugreek Seeds. These are small, hard, amber-colored seeds you'll find in the spice aisle for a couple of dollars. If you ignore this one because it sounds exotic, you're walking past one of the most powerful blood sugar tools on the shelf, and it costs less than your morning coffee. Fenugreek is packed with a soluble fiber called galactomannan. When it hits the water in your stomach, it swells into a thick gel that physically slows how fast your stomach empties carbohydrates into your small intestine. Slower emptying means sugar trickles into your blood instead of flooding it. No flood, no giant spike, no panic insulin dump. On top of that, fenugreek contains an amino acid that nudges your pancreas to release insulin more efficiently and helps muscle cells absorb glucose better. In my own practice, I've watched fasting numbers drop within a week or two on this alone. Here's how to use it. Take 1 teaspoon of whole seeds, soak them in a glass of water overnight, and in the morning, drink the water and eat the softened seeds before breakfast. If the slightly bitter taste bothers you, grind them up and stir half a teaspoon into yogurt or sprinkle over eggs. Start low because this fiber is strong and your gut needs time to adjust. Let me tell you about a patient I'll call Richard. He's 58, works in construction, came to me frustrated because his fasting sugar was stuck around 170 and his doctor wanted to start him on insulin. Richard didn't want that. He'd watched his father go down that road, and it didn't end well. We didn't cut his carbs to 0. We added eggs and avocado at breakfast instead of bagels. A tablespoon of apple cider vinegar before his largest meal. Lentils instead of white rice twice a week. Walnuts mid-afternoon instead of chips. Fatty fish on Tuesdays and Fridays. Ceylon cinnamon in his coffee. Broccoli sprouts on his lunchtime sandwich. Within 10 days, his fasting numbers started dropping. Within 6 weeks, working alongside his doctor, he'd come down off the extra medication they were planning to add, and his A1C moved from 7.8 down to 6.2. A year later, it's held steady. He didn't starve. He ate more food, just the right food, and his body remembered how to do its job. Before I give you your action plan, I need to be very clear about one thing. If you're currently on insulin or a sulfonylurea, one of the older diabetes pills, these foods can lower your blood sugar fast enough that your medication dose may suddenly be too high. That can drop you into dangerous low blood sugar territory. So add these foods with your doctor watching your numbers closely, and let them adjust your medication dose down as your body improves. Do not stop any prescription on your own. Bring this list to your next appointment and work as a team. I'm giving you tools, not telling you to go rogue. Here's what you do tonight. 5 simple steps. 1. Tomorrow morning, replace your cereal or toast with 2 or 3 whole eggs and half an avocado. That single swap changes your entire day. 2. Tonight, soak 1 teaspoon of fenugreek seeds in a glass of water and drink it first thing in the morning before breakfast. 3. Buy Ceylon Cinnamon, not cassia, and add 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon daily in your coffee, oatmeal, or smoothie. 4. Before your biggest carbohydrate meal tomorrow, take 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar diluted in a full glass of water 15 minutes before eating. 5. This week, swap white rice or potatoes for lentils at least twice, and put fatty fish on your plate 2 nights. Stack these in over 2 weeks. You're not removing foods you love. You're adding the foods that protect you. Now, everything we covered today handles your blood sugar during meals and throughout the day. But a huge number of you have told me the same frustrating thing. Your highest reading of the whole day is first thing in the morning, before you've eaten a single bite. You fasted all night, and your sugar went up anyway. There's a specific reason your liver does that while you sleep, and there's a way to shut it down. I made a video that explains exactly what's happening overnight and how to wake up to a lower number. I'll link it right here on the screen. Go watch that one next, and I'll see you there. I'm Dr. Joseph Miller. Take control of your health.